What's up? Welcome in. A Bears win on a Thursday night. Bears own Thursday night football on Prime. That is the Bears night of the week, Johnsy.
There's no more.
No.
It's just a Monday nighter against the Vikings?
Unless that gets flexed.
Flexed.
They can flex Monday night games this year, and I believe that's the first one that is actually allowed to be flexed. I always find it hard to believe they're going to flex out of the Chicago market. And this Josh Dobbs story is all of a sudden kind of interesting too.
Justin Fields will be back.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's going to happen, but last night, that was a game that was played.
It's fine. Honestly, like my number one takeaway is that if you're the Carolina Panthers, you might be a bit concerned about things.
Oh yeah.
A lot of things.
Yeah, that's a bad football team that doesn't have a first round pick and might not have a quarterback either. If I'm David Tepper, who's already known for not having very much patience, the Panthers owner over there, I don't know how I'm feeling if I'm Scott Fitterer or even Frank Reich.
Did I hear this stat that he's had 5 coaches in 5 years?
Tepper, since he took over?
Yes.
I
don't even know how that's possible.
Well, Rule was there for 2, right?
And there had to be an interim.
Oh yeah, you're probably counting. Oh yes, because Wilkes took over.
Maybe 2 interims in there.
I'm trying to think who was that. Well, Ron Rivera.
Okay.
Yeah, Ron Rivera was there when Tepper took over, and then there's probably an interim there too. So yeah, I think that adds up.
Well, he looked very. Oh, there was another. So there's another interim, Perry Fuel.
That one I never would have remembered.
Yes.
Yeah. Holy moly.
He looked impatient. Like he looked like he wanted to fire everybody when they put him on the broadcast.
They put him on the broadcast?
Not like to talk, but when they just showed him in the box there,
okay,
he looked angry.
Well, he should be angry. I mean, I should also mention they also traded away DJ Moore. So you lost DJ. You're playing against DJ Moore. Your quarterback's not very good, and you don't have your first round pick. I mean, that had to be a very as unpleasant of a football game as that was to watch for everybody. I mean, if you're a Carolina Panthers fan, that had to be. I don't even know how you would have watched that
on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
You know what? I know we're gonna get into this a lot later, but there were numerous times throughout that game where I'm like, oh no, Bryce Young can't see down the field.
Yeah.
Well, throws were low, throws were high. That's on the scheme, but that's also selecting a guy who's 5'10".
Well, I was gonna say he literally can't see. Because I actually think his college tape indicated he could see the field well, like in terms of understanding offense and progressions. But it's not looking good there. We'll see what CJ Stroud does again this weekend too. But that's I don't, as bad as things can be sometimes for Bears fans, I don't know that there's a worse situation right now. Maybe in sports. Other than my baseball.
I was about to say there's one on the south side of Chicago.
That's probably worse.
You might have seen their stadium as you were leaving Soldier Field last night.
Yeah, it was.
They're losing everybody, including their,
Good for you, Jason.
Very popular. Yeah, very popular play-by-play man.
Real quick on that, okay? 20 seconds on this, okay? We'll do a Kevin Fishbane 15 seconds on Northwestern.
All right, I'm counting. Go.
Okay. Earlier this week, hometown kid from Milwaukee leaves for the Cubs in his own division. A couple days later, hometown kid leaves Chicago for division rival Tigers. Both of these situations being viewed completely differently by the fan bases, because every White Sox fan in the world knows that it's not, that Benetti has every reason to leave and should leave. But there's really not much difference between like what the two guys are doing. Craig Counsell, he's from Whitefish Bay, going to the Cubs. Benetti's leaving for a division rival, grew up in Chicago, and everyone here is like, yeah, good for you, man. Way to get out. I mean, what does that say about your team and ownership when it's like that?
And what if the Cubs sign Ohtani now?
Well, they probably will. And yeah. Well, we don't have to get into that, but I've never believed my theory more that the White Sox will not be in Chicago in 10 years. I've never been more convinced. There's nothing here for them anymore. Soon, whoever's the new owner, whenever Jerry passes and the team gets moved around, there's so many markets right now that want a team, and the White Sox are going to be at the top of the list to move. I guarantee it.
Nashville, Tennessee.
Their lease is up in like 6 years, I think. Never been more convinced. Anyway, this is a football show. Welcome in. Hoge Jahns with you. Bears got a victory last night. They are now 3-7 on the year. They hold currently the number 1 and number 5 picks in the NFL draft this coming spring. You can follow us on Twitter at Adam Hoge, at Adam Johns. You can follow our show account at Hoge Jahns. Go to HoganJahns.com for merch, including the shirt I'm wearing today. We do love football on this podcast, as you can imagine. I got a couple questions for you, Johns, coming out of last night's game. Tyson Bagent, for, whatever it's worth, I didn't think he played particularly well last night. He looked like a rookie quarterback too, but he didn't turn the ball over. The Bears ran the ball effectively, played good defense. They got it out of there with a win. Tyson Bagent, in this 4-game stretch, went 2-2. The Bears are actually 3-3 in their last 6, which is something. It's hard to really feel great about it, considering just how things looked last night at times. But my question for you, are you buying or selling the idea that the Bears could continue playing 500 ball when Justin Fields comes back?
I am 100% buying that.
Interesting.
I think there's a lot of stats that almost would back that up. I look at the improvement of the run defense as number 1. They were one of the worst rush defenses in the league last year. They're number 1 in yards per carry now defensively. Number 1 in the NFL. They're that good. They've turned it around that much. I think you saw last night the multiplying effect of Montez Sweat too. I'm not saying it's going to be there like every snap, every quarter, maybe not even every game. But you saw that it's possible. There were more than glimpses of it. It happened last night. It happened. He only had 3 quarterback hits, but there were 3 sacks, and that defensive line looked better. Part of that probably could have been Bryce Young, but in general, they were better. Helped to have that secondary back. And that offensive line. Well, Tyson Bagent played fine. He was good enough to win. No sacks, no turnovers. That offensive line provided him time. They continue to run the ball well. And if they're going to play 500 ball, isn't that who we expected them to be almost to begin with? Like a middle of the pack team?
Yeah. That was kind of that was the expectation. Did you see that stat Prime put up at the end of the game that the Bears did not allow a sack? They did not turn the ball over, and they did not allow their opponent to score a touchdown, an offensive touchdown. That was the first time since 1998 against the Ravens.
Wow.
Now, the Panthers are awful, but that's got to count for something. I mean, you just don't have a lot of games like that, right? Where you don't allow a sack, you don't turn the ball over, and you don't allow a touchdown. I mean, that's pretty impressive. Now, I'm looking at the schedule though, Johns. So for them, they got 7 games left. So you can't. I guess if we include this Panthers game in it, you have to go 3-4 the rest of the way, and you can say that, hey, we went 4-4 in the last 8 weeks of the season. That counts for something. And then 6-7 down the stretch in the last 13 weeks of the season. If they finish 3-4 the rest of the way, that's what you could say. Now, do you think they're going to go into Detroit and beat the Lions? Because I don't.
No.
Okay. Do you think they're going to go in Minnesota on Monday Night Football and beat the Vikings?
Possibly.
Possibly. Let me see a little bit more of Josh Dobbs here.
As good of a story as Josh Dobbs is for what he did last week, I mean, he did just leave the 1-win Arizona Cardinals
Because my counterpoint to you, I guess, is then you get a bye week, then you play the Lions again, and I don't think they're going to beat the Lions at home, quite frankly. And then they got to go to Cleveland. And Cleveland's got a really good defense.
One of the best.
And I don't need to bring up flashbacks to the last time Justin Fields went to Cleveland. But there's also a world, I guess what I'm saying is there's also a world in which they lose the next 4 games.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I think 1-3 is probably the best case scenario. But the last 3 weeks, you get 2 Southern teams and the Cardinals and Falcons coming to Soldier Field on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. I think those are 2 games that actually kind of play into the Bears' favor from a schedule perspective. And then you end the season in Green Bay against a bad Packers team, but we know how those games typically go.
I guess my question for you then is, like, well, then how are they losing those games? Is it like the Chargers game where they're blown out?
Yeah.
But Montez Sweat wasn't involved in that game. They still had injuries in their secondary. Justin Fields wasn't the starter. So they won't be favored in many of those games. They won't be favored against the Lions. Won't be favored against the Browns. I guess, how are you losing to those playoff-worthy teams?
Well, in fact, I would say they're only going to be favored against the Cardinals unless the Packers really bottom out. We'll see how both teams are playing there that final week. So I asked the question because I think arguments can be made both ways, and I don't have anything against your argument in buying it. Personally, I'm selling. I think they go 2-5 down the stretch here.
So
I think they beat the Cardinals.
I'll take the 3 wins.
Okay.
I'll take the 3 wins. Are we going to have some type of bet here?
Well, if we do, just solidify that I'm right because we know how these bets go.
Hey, eventually I'll be right.
Eventually.
Did we see what was up your sleeve? Or
I don't know. What's up yours?
That's good.
Great moment. Good for Flus. Honestly, I actually appreciated that.
We got some things up our sleeve, so.
The best part of that was nobody believed it. And then there really wasn't anything up their sleeve.
No.
And then Jason Leisure asked the question in the press conference.
Did we see what was up your sleeve? Or
I don't know. What's up yours?
What's up yours, man? That's fantastic. Good for Flus. He was a giddy Flus last night.
Well, he should be.
He was
that is his second 1-score game victory in his 2 years here.
Well, I have to imagine that was one of those halftimes where you're down by 1 and you're like, probably still going to win this game. I do have to say that not going for 2 up 5 was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Come on. There was not a lot of points that were going to be scored there. I mean, really, the only argument is you're worried about giving up 2 more field goals and not scoring the rest of the game. You lose by 1. You got to go up 7 in that spot. Every chart tells you that.
Yeah.
That
felt pretty clear to me, though. They wanted Tyson Bagent to play that game as conservative as possible.
I get that, but if Eddie Pinheiro doesn't chunk that 50, if you look at that kick, that 59-yarder, it's like a driver where you hit behind the ball. I mean, I think the easy thing to say there was, he was never going to make a 59-yarder. If you look at the contact behind the ball, he hit the ground first. Otherwise, that probably goes in.
Yeah, I know what you're saying as a special teams coach is like the operation, but I look at it this way. If I'm going out there with my driver and I got 300 yards of just beautiful fairway and I got to put some muscle into it, like your operation changes a bit. That would have been a career high for him, right?
Oh, I don't like the call to kick the field goal. I'm just saying that they were still this close, better contact on that ball. And I think that game's going to overtime. And all we're talking about this morning is how they didn't go for 2. But I think Frank Reich trying a 59-yard field goal in that moment was worse than not going for 2 by Flus. I think they were both very questionable decisions. All right, my second question for you. The Panthers are bad. We've covered that. Are you buying or selling the Bears defense being legitimately good?
I think they've improved. So can I put it on hold, whatever I'm buying or selling?
Well, and one thing you can also do, you can think about this however you want, but think of it less of how they played last night and how you think that translates to the next game against the Lions offense
Tougher
inside
challenge.
Ford Field. Because if they're legitimately good, they should be a defense that can hold the Lions to 20 points. They didn't
20-ish.
allow a touchdown last night. That's good for them. They get all the credit in the world. Montez Sweat. The vibes with Montez Sweat through these first two games could not be more opposite than the vibes with Chase Claypool last year when he came in almost the exact same trade.
You know who had a good game too? Kyler Gordon.
Yes.
TFLs seem to be everywhere on the field after allowing that big touchdown against the Saints. Like, I think the defense has played. They were decent against the Saints. They played really well against the Panthers. Not exactly two elite opponents, especially the Panthers. We went over that. You want to see more, especially against a more physical team and the Lions with the offensive line that will take it to a Montez Sweat. But I guess what I'm buying is there's been gradual improvement, and it helps when you're healthy.
I would say right now, their best defensive performance when you consider the opponent was probably the Vikings game. But Justin Jefferson wasn't even in that game.
So they allowed 213 yards of total offense. I think that's not a career season low for the Panthers. I know the Panthers stink, but that's still something.
No, they played well last night. And legitimately, that was the first game where you're like, wow, there's a pass rush. Whether they're getting home or not, they're affecting the quarterback. They're making him move. They're getting him off his spot. The quarterback isn't comfortable. We haven't been able to say that all season.
Yeah, you've heard my rant on this before. I want contact of the quarterback. Pressure is one thing. I want physical contact on the quarterback. And Montez Sweat provided that early. I mean, he was just shoving Bryce Young like a big brother to a little brother in the first half. It looked like that in terms of the size difference. That's what you want to see. You want that quarterback to physically feel that pressure. Not just get away from it, but to be on his butt a couple times. And Montez Sweat in the first half provided that.
Yeah, that's what you want.
So, I'm buying gradual improvement. And like I said earlier, I am buying some of the multiplying effect, to use Ryan Poles' phrasing, of what Montez Sweat can bring that defensive line.
Well, this is an easy thing to say when you talk about the NFL and just football in general, but I'd really want to see the secondary stay together too. If they can stay out, this is the first time since week 1 or 2 that all 5 of those guys are actually out there healthy together. And if you can really see how this secondary, which was supposed to be the strength, match with an actual pass rush, we're going to get a much better idea of if the defense is good or not. Remember, Tremaine Edmonds didn't play again last night. So it's another guy you can be getting back here.
Although Jack Sanborn might be playing better than Tremaine Edmonds was prior to the injury.
I think so.
You know who thinks so? Lance Briggs.
Yeah. Well, I was with Brian Urlacher last night, and he feels the same way. And these are a couple of guys in Lance Briggs and Brian Urlacher know a little bit about playing linebacker.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
In this defense, too. So, and again, I almost think that conversation's a little unfair to Tremaine Edmonds because I don't think Tremaine Edmonds was playing poorly. I like Tremaine Edmonds. I've said this a million times. It's just I think it brings up questions of allocations of resources.
The contract is part of the evaluation.
It's like they didn't believe what they saw from Jack Sanborn last year.
True. It's a great way to put it.
And to the point where I know I said this a million times, so I apologize, but they never put him next to Roquan Smith. So even early on they didn't believe in him then. So it just I guess it's good to have depth at linebacker. It's not a bad problem to have. And it's not like you're hurting against the cap or anything yet, but it is questionable. All right. I know real quick before we get to some of the Prime Vision stuff, you and I differed this week on whether or not Justin Fields would or should play. I was just kind of going off a hunch that I thought he could, and I thought he wanted to play. And I'm not going to lie to you. When we saw the brief 10 minutes or whatever we got to see of him throwing the football on Wednesday, I thought they were going to come out and say he was playing. And obviously I was wrong. But it does raise questions to me if everyone's on the same page there. I mean, do you think everyone was on the same page? That
Yeah, I think it starts with the medical staff. It's a dislocated finger, man. Throwing thumb. I know he's throwing the ball fine, but he wasn't even taking real drops in what we were seeing. He was just taking one steps and like warm up throws.
Yeah, I know, but there was plenty of zip on the football.
Yeah, Nathan Peterman had plenty of zip too.
I think it came down to maybe if they really didn't medically clear him, they're fearing whether or not he could protect the thumb.
Yeah,
because I think he could throw just fine.
I think to your point, I think organizationally they probably felt they could beat the Panthers with Tyson Bagent.
That's what I think.
And the 10 days between now and the Lions game is ample time for that thumb to heal.
Or here.
I'll buy that. I believe he wasn't truly medically cleared. He just needed more time. Like there was something that Tyson Bagent said. I want to say, where was it? After the Chargers game, where he seemed to suggest that he's got 2 more starts. And that has stuck with me since. And there was someone, DJ Moore, too, talking to him after the Saints game, where he made it pretty clear to us there talking to him that I don't think Justin Fields was coming back in the short week. It'd be pretty tough.
Yeah.
So I think there was enough indication from those players. They probably had more information. And things change. Surprises happen. But just hearing what they were saying, especially starting with Tyson Bagent, basically hinting that he's got 2 more starts, that's what I was going on.
Well, and I had also, I get that. I had also heard from some inside the building, though, that thought he was going to come back against the Saints. So I feel like some are surprised that he ended up missing 4 games. But whatever. They went 2-2.
The surprise in that, too, is if he was going to miss that long, why not put him on IR?
Well, we have that answer. They're out. They can't bring anybody back from IR now. They've well, once Khalil Herbert comes back, that's 8.
That's it.
So they wouldn't have been able to bring someone back. I mean, they obviously would have brought back Justin, but then maybe a Josh Blackwell just has to sit on IR for the rest of the year, even though he's healthy. So that part I understand. It's the same reason why they haven't put Nate Davis on IR. They're out of IR spots. Basically anyone they put on IR the rest of the year is out for the year. And by the way, here's a tough part about that. I don't think it's the end of the world. I did put this in my newsletter the other day. 2 of the players that they designated to return already, that they took 2 of those 8 spots, they got waived after coming back. One of them was Khalid Kareem, who's on the practice squad, and the other is Doug Kramer, who is playing for the Arizona Cardinals. So, again, not the end of the world, but also not great that you get 8 spots and you use 2 of them on players that really aren't on the team anymore.
Well, I think that's what happens when you have so many injuries to navigate.
Yeah.
Too.
All right. You watched this game at home last night. I was at Joe's on Weed Street. We had a watch party. So I was watching the Prime Vision. Well, I was watching the broadcast, but couldn't really hear a lot of it. I know there's been a lot of complaints about how much Jason Kelce was on the screen.
he was on the screen for the entire second quarter.
And it would have been one thing if he was like helping analyze the game, but it sounds like it was just like an interview.
It was an interview. It was bizarre. And so my plan last night, Kevin Fishbane, John Greenberg, and Kalen Kaler were at the game for the Athletic, along with Joe Person. And with myself going on assignment later today, I always find national broadcasts interesting because there's a lot of interaction they have with the team. So I wanted to hear what they said before the game, during the game, after the game, because of that interaction. They talk to players, they talk to coaches, they talk to front office members, like longer than we ever get in the game week. Much longer, just in terms of the interactions, different settings, private, right? So it's always interesting to hear what they say. But yes, to your Jason Kelsey point, it was almost like, why are we talking about the Eagles? Why are we talking about the Wiener Circle? Why are we talking about being the sexiest man alive in the second quarter? I know this game isn't that good, 2 losing teams, but what are we doing here?
It's like Prime punted on the game before it ever started.
Al Michaels enjoyed it.
Enjoyed what?
The Jason Kelsey interaction.
Oh, I was gonna say he didn't enjoy the game.
If you look search Al Michaels on X, Twitter, there's a big smiling Al Michaels picture up there as he's interviewing Travis Kelsey.
Okay, Al got his Chicago cut meal in.
You heard that one?
Yeah, he got to hang out with Kelsey. Everything's fine. Sorry you had to call a bad football game. And by the way, that was not the worst football. Everyone's saying it's the worst football game ever. I had to watch Iowa, Wisconsin a few weeks ago. Okay, that was the worst football game ever played.
There's been worse. This wasn't a bad football game played. It was a conservative football game played. I would say it
was a boring game.
Yeah.
And it was a boring broadcast from what I hear. You watched the Prime Vision though, where you could see the routes and everything. What'd you think?
The offensive line did a good job. Well, just in terms of what it was, the production,
yeah.
It was pretty cool. Pretty cool. I like seeing the routes. I like the blitz orbs that they brought into it.
Yeah, you can see when pressure's coming. I just like that you can see the all 22.
Yeah.
Especially in a game like that, Johns, there were so many checkdowns where and so much drop back coverage. I can't tell you how many plays where if you were just watching the regular normal broadcast camera view, like Bagent would drop back, you'd see the only receiver you could see in the screen was Deontay Foreman, and then he would just throw it to Deontay Foreman. And it's like, I can't see 3/4 of what's happening. Yeah. So that's the football nerd to me. I like the Prime Vision broadcast because you could see everything as everything's developing. You understand why he's checking it down.
Yeah. So my takeaway on that was the Panthers did a good job of taking shots away down the field.
Yeah.
A couple guys over the top. It always seemed to be that way. And he had protection to take those shots, too. I thought the offensive line played really well for the Chicago Bears. The game is what it is. I did find some of the commentary pretty interesting. Can I read you a few quotes for your reaction?
Yes. Is this the Michael Smith stuff?
I'm going to read you the Michael Smith and then maybe a little Whitworth.
Okay, so these are members of the Amazon Prime Thursday night crew who you have, correctly pointed out. They get inside access. They talk to people leading up to this game, and this is was some of the stuff they had to say during the broadcast.
So this is Michael Smith, the former ESPN host, now on Prime, about 20 to 30 minutes before the game, when he's doing his 1 minute on the situation of the Bears. The Bears lack. Sorry. Let me preface this one time. He's going over the situation that Ryan Poles took over from Ryan Pace. The Bears lack picks, cap space, youth, and talent, Smith said. Poles had to reset the roster, and that process takes more than 2 off seasons. There were hardly any first-rounders around here when Poles arrived. Then Smith goes into the Bears trade for Montez Sweat. Here's what he said. That was a move to get more blue-chip talent in the building, Smith said. And here's the really interesting thing. This is how he wrapped up his segment. So Justin Fields is under contract for next year, and the Bears have the option for the 5th year, and they still believe in him. Let me repeat that. And they still believe in him. A lot can change now. A lot can change between now and the draft, but the Bears know this roster still needs to undergo a lot of upgrades around whomever is under center.
So we had a little. I didn't know that Michael Smith had said that before the show, but we had this discussion on our post game last night on CHGO, and my conclusion was basically this. My gut is telling me a lot of this is just from experience covering this league, that we know where this is headed. With the Bears potentially have the number 1 pick, the quarterbacks that are available, the uncertainty with Fields, we don't even know if he can stay healthy the rest of the year, right? But personally, I'm not out. Like, I haven't made that call yet. I want to see what these last 7 games are, because I still believe that the best thing for the franchise overall, and I would look at the Panthers right now as an example of that. Now, the Bears probably wouldn't have to trade assets, right, to draft one of these quarterbacks like they had to do. But to me, the best thing is that Fields plays well enough that you can just draft 2 other studs to go help him.
And that's the best case scenario still.
And I don't think that best case scenario is off the table yet. I think we are a little too quick to assume that this is over. My gut is still telling me that that might be where we end up 6 months from now. But I'm not there yet. I'm just not.
Here's some more. So this is after the game now. After the game. Where they were basically asked by Carissa Thompson, that'd be Tony Gonzalez, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Andrew Whitworth, and Richard Sherman, if Justin Fields is the guy. Whitworth has this long answer, and he ends it with this. You got a chance this year to use up all that draft leverage to stack this football team with talent. Then comes Richard Sherman. And I quote, because you end up in a situation that Bryce Young is in with not a lot of talent. The cupboard is pretty empty. He's trying his best. You can't even tell if he's talented or not because the team is so bad. You get a good quarterback in there, and he starts to think he's bad. He loses his confidence, and you can't build a good team around him. Then people start to rush to judgment. Doesn't that just sound like last year's Chicago Bears? Like, when I heard that, I'm like, that was last year.
Yeah, well, kind of the last 2 years. Yeah.
Still this year in a sense.
Yeah. I that's 100% a thing. I mean, it's the not the fundamental problem. It's one of the problems with the draft is the best quarterbacks go to bad teams. They go to teams with some exceptions, but they go. That's why I'm so impressed with what CJ Stroud is doing right now, because that hasn't been a good organization in the last 5, 6, 7 years, and he doesn't have a lot of talent around him.
Yeah. Well, I'm starting to think maybe that talent's a little bit better than we're giving it credit for.
Yeah. But also maybe DeMeco Ryans was a home run hire, and he's fixing things, and that is a much better environment for him to learn.
Yeah.
So
one reason I keep bringing everything up that's said, because like when I heard Michael Smith's report, like I almost felt like I was listening to Ryan Poles tell him this. You and I have been in this business long enough to know when certain messages are being sent from the organization, right?
Yep.
Like that's what I heard. I heard Ryan Poles himself.
Okay, now can I go conspiracy theory on you?
Okay.
Well,
he's taking a quarterback.
No, 2 weeks ago in LA, the Bears kind of got some backlash. The same type of conversation, right? Where people were trying to read between the lines of what Collinsworth was saying during that broadcast. And like they were almost like throwing Justin under the bus because there was so much glowing talk about Bagent in a game where they were actually getting their ass kicked. Do you think this was a correction because of maybe some things that were said to the NBC broadcast a couple weeks ago?
Maybe, but like maybe it was just the delivery of Collinsworth, because I think Tom Waddle himself put it pretty well. I want to say it was yesterday on a show on ESPN where they were talking about this, and his takeaway on what Collinsworth was saying was, yeah, players should always want to learn. I felt like maybe the delivery of Collinsworth came off as an insult of Justin Fields, and I partially understand that. I get it, but if you're a player and like Justin Fields hasn't arrived. His stats tell you he's a middle of the road quarterback. And if you could pick up something from anyone, I don't care who it is, Tyson Bagent, or you're backing up. Who was his backup last year? Trevor Siemian.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's still stuff that you could try to learn when you're not in. I feel like maybe the delivery wasn't fully there, but I know what you're saying. I do think maybe the context of who and where Tyson Bagent came from is not like driven home enough. I felt like Tony Gonzalez finally did last night. Like, this is a Division II quarterback. Like, when you look at like the last few schools he played in college compared to what he's playing right now, like, this is something.
Oh,
It's crazy. Yes, it's unbelievable if you think about it.
And no matter what the competition is, last night, as ugly as it was sometimes, is what you want your backup quarterback to be able to do.
Yeah.
You want to be able to say, all right, we're playing a bad team. Just operate the offense. We'll run the ball. Don't make mistakes. We'll get out of there with a win. And in the NFL, as Bagent said last night, I mean, winning is hard, especially when you have a roster like the Bears do right now.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? They put a graphic up last night of like the teams he played, and I'm forgetting what Al Michael said about it. But he made like, wow, that is quite the jump to go from playing Colorado School of Mines,
Yeah,
to the Minnesota Vikings, or you know what I mean? Like, that's something.
I just love that the Colorado School of Mines has a football team.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Please tell me they're the Miners. I wouldn't know.
You can look it up real quick. Now I feel like we have to. I'm just happy we didn't talk about Bears special teams.
Yeah. How about Lawrence Holmes calling that, by the way?
So my dad was at this watch party last night. He was bringing something up, and I didn't really understand what he was saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he's basically saying that someone on the score yesterday was like basically saying that Amir Smith-Marsette's going to return a touchdown against the Bears.
Right, because it's going to be kind of a wild game. Now, it wasn't that much of a wild game, but Lawrence Holmes called it.
Or Diggers.
Or Diggers?
Or Diggers.
Oh, I like
and their mascot's this badass donkey.
Really?
It's like a bucking. It's like if you took the Broncos, like the bucking Bronco, but made it a donkey.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of like Justin Fields is the Bears starter. He was always going to be the Bears starter, but I feel like the Justin Fields defenders, whatever you want to call them, what does Sylvie call them on the radio? I forget, but you're not like fully appreciating like the jump that Tyson Bagent is trying to make from Division II to playing in the NFL right now. He was playing in front of like 2,000 people at Shepherd University, to now playing in front of 68,000 on national television and beating the Heisman Trophy winner.
Yeah,
like that's something.
Well, and I went on a little rant about this earlier in the week. I kind of lost my mind for a second. Like, can we stop doing this in Chicago? Like, everybody's so eager after that last game to say like Bagent sucks. It's like, just put it in proper context. They probably found a good backup quarterback.
Yeah.
For many years. That's a win. Stop trying to put him on the Fields pedestal.
Yeah.
And just like these people are like concluded already that Fields sucks. Fields does not suck. Has he lived up to the high expectations yet? No. But I keep asking this question. If they moved on from Fields, they traded him, would you be worried that he's going to end up being a good starter somewhere else? And I think that answer is yes. And I don't think that answer was the same when Trubisky left.
Here's like so hearing everything that was said in the broadcast, try to relate it to like what Ryan Poles came from. Look what the Chiefs built themselves into before Patrick Mahomes arrived. Best tight end in the game, one of the fastest receivers in the game, good pass rush, playmakers on both sides of the ball, good offensive line. Alex Smith just had the best season of his career. And they saw the potential upgrade in Patrick Mahomes, the talent there. Had to trade up to get him. But I think the point I'm trying to make here is they built out that roster to help any quarterback, Alex Smith to Patrick Mahomes. Right? Like there was enough talent around there to help Alex Smith. And then it was there for Patrick Mahomes to take the multiple Super Bowls.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Blue chip players. They had a bunch of them.
Yeah, and that's what some of these bad organizations, they get so hyper focused on finding the quarterback first. And like people forgot that the Chiefs also traded up a huge, like the Chiefs were drafting later in the draft because they were already a decent team.
Yeah.
And they moved up to get Mahomes. That was not a quarterback ending up on a bad roster.
Yeah, no, this is like the most important. Like it's Jalen Hurts, 2nd round pick, but going into a team that had the best offensive line, best defensive line, game changers on both sides of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a great look. San Francisco. It's one reason why every quarterback seems to work there is because you have just all this talent around him on both sides of the ball. It's something to think about. And if you look at the Bears' history in terms of trading up for Mitch Trubisky, losing all those 1st-round picks, trading for Jay Cutler, and then not having 1st-round picks for what, 2-3 years?
Right. Yeah, and that hurt them. They're drafting
Absolutely,
major
it
right
did
in the
hurt
3rd
them.
round.
Yes, absolutely, it did hurt them.
Mm-hmm.
There was something that Kyle Long said when I was doing something on Trubisky years ago. You know, his quote, and I think I'm paraphrasing it.
No,
is,
don't care.
"We weren't ready for Mitch,"
Mm.
and it's always just stuck with me because I think he's talking about the roster, the organization, they weren't built to develop or to have a young quarterback come in and win. There just wasn't enough there.
You love the interception questions. Like I was counting you for that.
Yes.
Good times.
All the memories.
All right. Was a good recap show of last night's game. Bears get a win. Enjoy your little weekend in beautiful Chapel Hill. Weather looking okay?
I am gonna check it right now.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna go check out the Colorado School of Mines over the weekend. The Ore Diggers.
The Ore Diggers.
See if they have a quarterback compete to Tyson Bagent's level. No. No offense to your trip to Carolina, but we got more important business to take care of tomorrow. 2:00.
Good luck, my friend.
Carmel. Be a big game against Nazareth. Looking forward. It's been a weird week. I'm not gonna lie. With having the Bears game in the middle of the week, it's kind of nice. I don't have to worry about the weekend, but all of a sudden it's oh shit, it's Friday. So the second, we got a great CHGO show coming up for you at noon today, and at 1:01, my brain is hyper focused on
Naz.
So should be fun. All right. Everybody pull out, take a look at what's up your sleeves.
We got some things up our sleeves, so
Johnsy's got things up his sleeves as he goes looks at Drake May this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Should be good.
Did we see what was up your sleeve, or
I don't know. What's up yours?
He was ready for that one.
So
he was so ready for that one.
I'm telling you, good for Flus. We had some fun with the Flus last night. I'm not gonna lie, because it was just I was getting a kick out of just how smiley he was. Coming out of halftime, down 1 to the Panthers, haven't scored a touchdown. Oh, we're ready to go. We got things up our sleeve.
we got some things up our sleeve. So
Right? Yeah. Boom. What's up your sleeve?
The funny thing is, everybody probably thought offense. All I was thinking about is double A gap blitzes.
Yeah, I'm blitzing Sanborn. That's what's up my sleeve.
Yeah, I'm gonna stunt the hell out of Bryce Young. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
The one word that stands out to me is complimentary football.
Again, that's 2 words.
It's 2
Yeah,
words.
but we got you, Flus. I highly enjoyed the what's up yours. Fantastic. All right. Follow us on Twitter at Adam Hoge. Follow Adam Jahns this weekend. We go check out Drake May. His scouting report will blow up on The Athletic. You better be a subscriber. theathletic.com/Hoge Jahns to go subscribe there. And we'll have you covered later today on CHGO, a noon show. Got Carmi V coming by. And then we're all going to enjoy the weekend a little bit. We'll come back next week. Have a Tuesday episode for you here on Hoge Jahns. We'll hear about Johnsy's trip to UNC. And we're out of here. See ya.
See ya.